Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. My name is Patricia Modis. I'm the Transitions OT, and I'm your host. So today, I'm beyond excited to introduce you to our guest of honor. Dr. Arameh Anvarizadeh is an occupational therapist who develops grassroots organizations. She is currently the Director of Admissions and Associate Professor of Clinical Occupational Therapy at USC. Dr. Anvarizadeh is responsible for developing the holistic admissions process and maintaining effective admission strategies and procedures within the division. She also oversees each academic program and makes sure the division is filled with high-caliber, diverse students. Dr. Anvarizadeh is a founding member and chair of the Coalition of Occupational Therapy Advocates for Diversity. You might also know it as COTAD. It's a non-for-profit organization striving to empower occupational therapy leaders to engage in practices that increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for a more transformative occupational therapy profession. She is responsible for developing the COTAD toolkit, the Ignite series, COTAD chapters. She tirelessly works to support and establish COTAD chapters of academic programs across the country while empowering students to facilitate dialogue, awareness, and change related to diversity, equity, and inclusion within the profession and beyond. She has recently made history as the youngest and first African-American Iranian woman to become Vice President of the American Occupational Therapy Association. She is also the youngest woman of color inducted into the prestigious roster of fellows, FAOTA. Dr. Anvarizadeh currently holds leadership positions with AOTA. She was also a member of the AOTA Special Task Force on entry-level education and a crucial contributor to the professional dialogue on the entry-level degree requirements. She is a recent alumna of the 2020 cohort for the Executive Leadership Program for Multicultural Women within the Occupational Therapy Association of California, OTAC. Dr. Anvarizadeh serves as an Advocacy and Government Affairs Committee member. She is a recipient of OTAC's Janice Matsutsuyu Outstanding Service Award and Vision Award, and she's previously held the position of Communications Chair for 7 years. So without further ado, I would like to present to you Dr. Arameh Anvarizadeh. Welcome, Arameh.
Thank you for having me. That was such a beautiful introduction. I'm really honored to be able to share space with you today, and to just have a conversation. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being interested in me sharing my story. And thank you for that. Again, lovely introduction.
You're welcome. I'm so excited. Well, you've done a lot. So we're going to delve into some of that and get into the nitty gritty. But thank you for, taking the time. I know you're a busy lady, especially being a new mom.
Yeah.
So a whole another role that requires a whole lot of other
right now for me. Yeah.
Lots of other occupations there, right?
Yeah.
And, again, just thanks for taking the time. This is, it's so important for me to share your perspective and your story and the uncommon OT work that you do, particularly to inspire other OTs out there to follow suit. Cool. So super excited. But again, before we delve into all of that, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about you.
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. But, I'm like, what should I say? But I am an Angelino.
Yes.
Through. I am born and raised in Los Angeles, Black Iranian female, go by pronouns she, her, hers. And I have been practicing occupational therapy. Wow, Patricia, I can't believe it, 15 years, I would say, maybe. Oh my God.
Doesn't it just fly after like the first 5?
I remember when I was a new grad, and I was like, wow, 4 years seems like a long time. Because somebody in my clinic was 4 years practicing, like, wow. And now I'm 15 years in, and I can't believe it. But I graduated from USC, the University of Southern California, which is this full circle moment of now being the director of admissions and associate professor. But I went there, I got my undergrad, my master's, and my doctorate there, and went into just knew I was going to do adult rehab, phys dis the whole time. And then this trajectory of what we'll talk about today has led me to admissions administrative work. So first job was really in pediatrics OT, and really honed my skills, still very neuro-oriented, phys dis, and really, really an amazing experience when I worked for California Children's Services, and one of a very special time in my life where I was just humbled to be surrounded by amazing colleagues, PTs, OTs, as well as amazing clients. And so from there, I journeyed into other things, and then scooched my way into academia, where I'm at now. And so that's just a little bit about myself. I would say I'm a left-handed Leo. I mean, for anybody.
I love Leos. I'm Aquarian, so Leos and Aquarians are.
And I really, really embrace community and culture and love for people. And so just a little bit about myself. And I think you want to know some of the things that I like to do, right?
If you'd like to share, yes, please. I think our listeners would love to hear a little bit more about that.
It's interesting, Patricia, because if you would have asked this question a few months ago, it would have completely been different. Like, you asked this question to me pre-COVID, which is kind of interesting how we're having this conversation now, where we're like, no masks right now, and we're able to go out and about a little bit more freely. And, it's me situating myself and realizing, wow, these are the occupations that I've missed. And these are the occupations that I loved doing. And it's been kind of taken away for 2 years, And in the midst of that, I've gained a new role, which is becoming a mother. And so that occupation, really embracing motherhood and all the things in that daily role. So I guess sleep would be a great occupation. Don't underestimate the power of sleep being an occupation. I really, really, it's a favorite occupation if I can get that.
Yes, it's the forgotten ADL. People refer to it to that.
ADL. And, but I do still, when I feel like one of the things that we need to embrace as occupational therapists is really looking at our communities and seeing how COVID has impacted, our mental health and our anxiety, and being able to return back into all the things, the workforce, society, as if we never left, right? And so embracing occupations that I love, and like traveling, and going to concerts and spaces where we were saying you can't go to, and now it's like, just go freely, like nothing ever happened, or things I'm slowly feeling more comfortable becoming my favorite occupations again. So I just went to Portland, Oregon, and I was like, oh, I love traveling. And it's like getting over all of those humps, again, and with the baby are things I'm starting to re-embrace, are still seeing that they're still my favorite occupations. They just look a little different right now. So so traveling, sleeping, going out to brunches, exercising, concerts, all of those are my favorite occupations. Leadership, being part of community are my favorite occupations.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing some of that with us. I'm happy too that we're able to kind of breathe a little bit more. I saw a show at the Forum the other day, and that was just amazing to feel the energy of all of these people again. And I just realized really how much I missed it. So
honestly, it's like, it was just, I think we really, one of the things that we should focus on in occupational therapy is that piece, like re-engaging in occupations that we hadn't for so long, and how that,
we'll touch upon that a little bit more, hopefully today. Can you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to contribute to this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you were so awesome to invite me first, and so whenever I get an invitation to something so unique and special, I consider it and I listen, and we had a conversation, and that was motivation enough to see where your heart was in this work, and what your intentions were in building and in creating the space, right? To be able to share and talk and show things which are non-traditional. And so also I felt like, well, this is an opportunity to discuss these non-traditional practice areas and what grassroots organizing looks like in occupational therapy, and how you can connect those dots in what you do in a non-traditional realm, and how you can also connect those dots in making it more traditional, right?
Yes.
So making the things non-traditional ultimately become the way things are.
Absolutely.
And so, so that motivated me to provide a story and to hopefully inspire others to be the change that they want to see.
I would love to hear more about before we get to the uncommon OT work, the variety, the different ones that you do.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about kind of the path. So here you were working in pediatrics, and then how did you make the bridge from there into, I'm going to start organizing. I'm going to start developing grassroots programs.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been asked this question in different ways, like, when did you realize you were a leader, or why did you start, your organization, or just in different senses. And it helped me reflect and saying, like, for example, me starting COTAD, that's, I guess, the grassroots organizing that we'll be talking mainly about today. Did it just start because we had an idea? But I look at my life and it's like, I've been doing this since I was a child, right? Grassroots organizing and looking at disparities in community and saying, well, what can we do to fix it? What can we do to support? What can we do to elevate voices? What can we do to create space for marginalized individuals, right? And so I guess this path has always been in me. It's just fueled differently. So, for example, when I was in undergraduate, I saw a need to start a community-based organization for the local community at USC and for students of color at USC, particularly Black students at USC. And we started a wonderful organization that was action-oriented for helping in our communities and increasing diversity at USC. Also starting a scholarship. So this is something that was very grassroots when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, right? And it became the number one organization on campus. And we were able to increase the Black student population on campus. We were able to have scholarships. We were able to create this kind of bridge between the students at USC and the surrounding community that is, before
predominantly
Black.
Yes.
and right? And Latino.
Yeah.
And Latinx. So those are powerful. Those are powerful programming and organizing and getting people engaged, get people involved, get people willing to care about these matters, right? And so when I entered OT, I always knew I wasn't going to just be a therapist, and there's nothing wrong with this, especially now being a new mom. So please don't think these words just to be, but to be a therapist that would go home and just go to work and come home. I knew I wanted to be involved. How, I don't know, because back then, there wasn't a big, back then, 06, 07, it's not that long ago, but there was a big push about being a part of associations or having a mentor or getting, presenting at conferences. Students weren't pushed to really do that, right?
No.
And so when I graduated, I really had to find my people, find, my mentors. And when I got a tap on my shoulder to join OTAC, it was okay, this is going to be my first foot to build community, to network, to get to know my California OTs. And that led me to opportunity, but also to see things that I really wanted to to impact. And
Yes.
when the Centennial Vision had this piece of it that talked about a diverse workforce and meeting society's occupational needs, it's like, well, where are we in that?
Mm-hmm.
And now fast forward, we're talking about 2013, 2012, and 2017, the Centennial Vision is supposed to be actualized, right? And so there's all these pieces in the Centennial Vision being evidence-based, science-driven. I felt like, yeah, we were really accomplishing those things. But this diversity piece, being a diverse workforce piece, was really concerning.
Yeah.
And so it was at that moment that there was a group of us, and I'm not the only founder, but there was a group of us that said, let's start something. And grassroots organizing comes from that idea from a group of individuals that said, let's just do. We didn't have all the resources. We didn't have all the strategic plan. We didn't have the infrastructure, but we had the heart. We had the passion, right? And we knew that there was change that needed to be done. We knew that we wanted to take a piece of the Centennial Vision and make it our own, to create legacy, to create impact, to create intentionality in this work. And from there, it has grown now. Next year, I'll be, I believe, doing 10 years of this work. And to know that what phase we are in this grassroots organizing has now become a legit nonprofit, right? So, no one was trained in this work, but we're doing it.
Yes.
And it's all coming from the heart of service. It's all coming from volunteerism. So how we shifted, and you asked me how I made these trajectory, like I was still practicing. I'm still practicing today. It's still running an organization, It's really this idea of what do you want your impact to be? And how are you going to utilize your voice and how are you going to take up space, right?
Yes.
So even though my heart is always with marginalized communities, I don't stop my work at COTAD, but the core, the mission, the vision, and this is what I hope everyone does in this non-traditional way in their traditional settings, if they still have a job. I'm a director of admissions at USC. I'm not stopping this belief of Jedi work, anti-racism work, anti-oppression work that COTAD's about. I bring that passion and bring that love of community, of elevating voices into my work, into my 9 to 5, right?
Yes.
Into where we started Holistic Admissions, which is another grassroots organizing of creating change that was so traditional one way, and now we shifted. That was very long-winded, but
but very insightful.
Yeah.
You said one word that really stuck out, and I think that's you. You're an impact. You said the word impact. You're absolutely an impact maker. And I'll speak for the impact that you've made on me in terms of, the COTAD, the co-founding of COTAD. I got, here I am, a person of color, practicing for 22 years now. So, back when I went to OT school, there were only about 4 in all of New York, right? And now there's about 30, I think. So the diversity of the OT programs back then were not, but I really, really lucked out because I went to City University that was actually founded by Wimberly Edwards, who founded the Black Occupational Therapy Caucus, or a co-founder of the Black Occupational Therapy Caucus. And I learned later that, I'm pretty sure she was very intentional in making sure that this occupational therapy program was located in Jamaica, Queens, New York, like a predominantly densely African-American neighborhood, right? And really making this profession more accessible to me. I'm from Queens. I grew up in Queens.
Hello.
So that's how OT was made accessible to me, because my other options were NYU, Columbia, right, which were really not within my price range at the time. Right.
Yes.
So this impact, this dialoguing, the conversations that you're enticing by your grassroots organization were not really conversations that were had, as an OT of color all these years. So it wasn't until I became aware of COTAD that I felt, really kind of connected, that, oh my gosh, people are talking about this too. And this is also important to others.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for sharing that. That makes me really, that just gave me goosebumps.
Oh.
Yeah, because, Patricia, when we started this, we got so much slack. We were just a group of emerging leaders. Like, we were part of literally an AOTA, part of the Emerging Leaders Program. And, when we had our first presentation about why we need to have to increase diversity in the student body so we can increase diversity in the workforce, it's like 3-4 people at our presentation, right? Nobody had, associations didn't have diversity committees like that. Every wasn't trying to create a DEI committee, or, there weren't like task force and stuff. We were like, there was MDI, which was amazing and beautiful, and we love and, supported. But, we just wanted to also continue to have the conversation. And we really, really believed in increased representation. Mm-hmm. And so all of us had our stories, like you. I was at USC, like there was no one who looked like me, no one who taught that looked like me, no one, maybe one student who looked like me. The first time I ever had a Black professor, it was in the public policy school when I was taking an elective. And it was when I was my doctorate, right? It was all the way to my terminal degree that I had my first Black professor. So there was a lack of. And, when we pushed to this, and now we're the premier organization doing this work. But it was just like this tunnel vision of, we really just want to see change. And our hearts were about, like, we just want to bring, like you said, you and individuals that didn't see where they really, not say belongs, but just feel like there's like-minded individuals that believe in this work too.
Yes.
And that this organization is solely focused on this work. We're not here, we're not there, we're not here, but we're focused on this work.
Yes.
And, so that's why you gave me goosebumps telling me your story, because I don't realize all the different stories from all over the country or internationally that this has impacted. But when I hear them, it makes me really feel and believe that we're continuing to be aligned with the work that is right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the work that's needed. Right. That we're all, we're all so happy that we're having these conversations, and that these, all this is just out in the surface. So this might be a great segue into, just tell us about the uncommon OT stuff that you do. I know you've already touched upon a little bit of each of them. Take it away.
Yeah, uncommon. Like, I just feel like I'm a connector, right? Like, I love to connect people with each other and find the gaps and bridge them. And so it's like a puzzle, right? And so when we do that, things seem to become uncommon, And so currently, I guess what we've been talking about is like COTAD, and this being a nonprofit organization, which I guess, like you said, was uncommon. People weren't creating these. Like, the fact that I started COTAD chapters a few years ago, and the first COTAD chapter was at West Coast University, where I was field work coordinator there. And now we fast forward 4 years or so, and there's over 100 chapters across this country. That was
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Talking to people.
Congrats.
Thank you. But, what excites me is that now we're going to have all these like-minded students who are the future of our profession, right?
Yes.
And they're empowered, and they're ignited, and they're mobilizing, and they're everything that we didn't have, right? And so that's so uncommon. That's so uncommon to see, like, we are building a future of individuals who are very conscientious about justice, equity, inclusion, diversity, anti-racism, anti-oppression.
Yes.
And pushing the envelope forward so that when we are in practice, that all people, populations, and communities receive quality healthcare, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's uncommon. And so there's so many different programming within COTAD that has been so uncommon. But now, what I was saying from the beginning is this uncommon idea that is becoming common now
Yeah.
because people are inspired to start. People are inspired to continue this work. People are inspired to create segments in their own communities that are inspired by COTAD and the grassroots organizing, right? So that's really exciting, is being establishing this organization that has become common and now it's become common, which is great, right? And then, like I said, taking this work, which I'm hoping that everyone does if they learn and gather resources and insight and network and community from COTAD, that they're inspired and they're in elevated and they feel like they have that muscle to go and do that work in their practice setting.
Yes.
Right?
And
like
bring it to their communities.
Bring it to their communities,
Yes.
right? And make that uncommon piece common.
Yes.
And so that is the work of me saying, I want to be that connector and bridge those gaps and say, you too can do it. Like I had a conversation just now with like an hour ago with somebody about something that happened at their university, and they were just finding ways to create voice and space to elevate marginalized groups. And we talked that through, but I feel like that wouldn't have been possible if they didn't know my role in COTAD or whatever. And so now me building up who I have been and co-created with a group of members, and now wonderful board members, wonderful leaders, committee leaders that are all aligned in doing this work. It gives us the power to say, now we have this network. Well, I'm going to run for AOTA office because we need to have a seat at the table, right? We're going to be these spaces and we're going to occupy these spaces that were never occupied before, right? Because there's power in numbers like that. We're going to now our cup is full to where I say, I'm going to go and help create change that's going to be sustainable change at USC, developing holistic admissions that traditionally were really focused on cognitive traits, right? How high your GRE is, how high is your GPA. So now we're looking at these non-cognitive traits that are just as powerful. How do you empathize? How are you able to develop your therapeutic use of self? Are you able to be in a space of cultural humility, right? So these are the type of OTs that we're looking for, but it comes from these uncommon ideas that we started, this grassroots organizing to say, I have the tools now. I have the confidence. I have power in my voice to say, it's time to make these changes in all of our practice settings, right?
Yes. And I love that you're approaching it all the way from, sort of the academic level, right? Before these individuals, these clinicians become full-blown OTs, let us first kind of hand pick, so to speak, right? Because I think it's important for the integrity of our profession to be representative and to also kind of stick to our core values.
You're the holistic transitions, right? You are the transitions that we are holistic in what we do. So why aren't we leading the path with holistic admissions, holistic recruitment, holistic practice, holistic, community building? Those are our roots. Like you said, we are the profession that understands the power of occupation and how that heals communities, and people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It also speaks to, it just speaks to the quality of the students that will come from these programs, right? From these academic institutions.
Well, if we look at institutions being the gatekeepers, right? We are the gatekeeper. And so you can use that power in a way that is exclusive. Or you can use that power to a way where it's inclusive and bring that, like you said, the core of who we are. Like, who do we want to see in our profession?
Yes.
We know evidence shows like you need representation to be able to help, provide client satisfaction, better client outcomes, cultural responsiveness, like all these. So if you utilize this uncommonness of even how we look at how we approach admission, how we approach recruitment before we even do admission, these are all uncommon. And I feel like, me being at also like the number one, whatever school, OT school in the nation, like it shouldn't just stop at USC. Like every school across this country, OT and OTA program should really embrace what this holistic admissions look like. Recruitment also, not just admissions, because even if you admit this, what we call quote unquote diverse student body, you still need to be able to provide safe spaces. You need to be able to provide support. You need to be able to make sure there's retention. And you need to make sure there's pedagogy being taught in a very inclusive way, right?
Yes.
And these are all uncommon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully becoming more common, right? I think maybe proof, like one giant proof is the hundreds of COTAD chapters that have sprouted everywhere. That is evidence. Yeah.
We planted a seed and they sprouted. And that's what ties the back of what motivated me to be on here today is like the uncommon should be common.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's also my motivation, right? For this podcast is that, I've been practicing for so many years. I've been doing kind of the same type of work, uncommon work for many years. Yeah. Yet here I am 22 years later, it's still very uncommon. And, also because I felt super passionate about the work that I did. I still do. I work in communities, and I think that's where we belong. So when the 2025 vision came out and it just really talked a lot about inclusivity and not just, necessarily, diversity in the sense of race, right? But also diversity in the sense of, where are we offering the settings in which we're offering the services that, the great services that we have. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And, so so enlightening to me, all of this. Thank you so much for sharing. And, I love that from the admissions process or from the admissions piece all the way through and the idea of it being sustainable and, again, the chapters are also going to really be helpful with that.
And every member, every person in that school should be a part of the chapter. It shouldn't even be a choice. It should be, we want to be intentional about being more like this in practice.
Yes. Got it. So my next question might be kind of tough because I know you hold several roles, including your new mom role. But can you describe to us what a typical day might be like for you, in your uncommon roles? What types of things do you do? Yeah. Well, how do you fill your day?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm currently on maternity leave, right? And you can see, even on maternity leave, I'm doing the uncommon. Literally.
Yes.
And so my day is so interesting. Like I said, it's like I'm not just going to work and coming home like when I was, when I was going to work. I guess I'm in maternity leave, so I'm going to talk in two
like pre-baby.
Yeah, pre-baby and baby. But like now on maternity leave, I am getting up with the baby, but trying to get on my email. Like, let's talk about it because I think that there is, this idea of being like, because I was before having this baby, I was like, I don't even need maternity leave. I got this, and I was working from sun up to sundown. I was like, I got this even with the baby. And when the baby has come, it has shifted my understanding of what productivity looks like, right? What productivity means in a society that is so about capitalistic productivity, right? And, even when I was like, still like 1 week, 2 weeks in, I'm like, I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I gotta look at my email. I gotta respond. I had to take a moment. Well, several people had to say, you gotta give yourself grace. But I had to take a moment and say, I'm going to sit and be present and be intentional in my maternity leave, connect with my baby and to embrace my new role. And I don't think we get enough of that because we're so rushed to go back to work. So our mind is like, okay, I gotta go back to work. Where am I gonna put the baby? And 3 months is up and then you're back at work, right?
Yes.
And so that is problematic in so many ways. So my day-to-day has shifted so much in this emotional, spiritual, physical realm where I'm allowing myself to embrace my new role as a mom, but I'm also balancing now as much as I can this space of grace of the things I love to do is occupational therapy. Yes. And this this saying yes to things like this, and allowing myself to say, okay, this is how much I'm going to give of this today to this.
Yes.
And so every day looks different now, because today, like, even though I'm not at USC right now, there's things I'm still doing. I'm doing this podcast. And then after this, before this, I met with somebody to talk about their concerns about their job and their OT space at their job and giving anti-racism work at their job. I had to have a talk about it. People don't realize I'm pulled in so many different ways, even if I'm not at work. And even when I was at work, still doing these different things. After the podcast, I'm meeting with a student from Jacksonville University because he wants to do a capstone with COTAD, right? So then after that, I'm meeting with another individual who wants to talk about collaborating in a publication. And then after that, I'm submitting an AOTA publication. And then after that, I'm checking emails to prepare for my panel at AOTA this week, And so it's nonstop with all the different service work that I do. So like tomorrow, pre-baby, it would have been filled with, admissions, this, that, and all the other things that come with volunteer service at US in OT, COTAD stuff, AOTA stuff like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, I'm pushing back a little bit so that I can be able to, give space with embracing and catching up with all things mommyhood, like a daycare for my baby, when I go back to work. So all these things are new balances. I don't ever think there's work-life balance. I think there's just work-life, engagement. Like, we're engaging in this, we're engaging in that, and we're trying to figure out our way to just get it done. And I think sometimes now, as a new mom in my day-to-day, we need to take a step back and stop and really reevaluate what productivity looks like, and be okay when productivity doesn't look like what we're so used to being told what productivity looks like. The traditional sense of, of productivity. This, I'm working 9 to 5, this productivity, and I feel good about myself because I did that. And I'm a boss lady because I did that. No, I'm still a boss in so many different ways,
It's just a shift of perspective. And, kind of, I in preparation for, the AOTA conference, the panel discussion that I'll be a part of, I was also reflecting a lot on, kind of my own sort of resilience, right? And how did I make it through COVID, like through, sort of professional changes, right? And, kind of similar to what you said, I kind of had to compartmentalize a little bit. Like, I had my physical, like, we talk about self-care as OTs, like, self-care, but it's a bunch of brouhaha if you're not really honing in on it, right? So it's like, I had to really kind of take care of myself physically, take care of myself emotionally, and then take care of my community stuff, just like my OT stuff. But I had to nurture all of those, because if I didn't, again, and didn't have that balance, then it was going to tip over. So
100%. And my point is, now they're saying, I know you compartmentalized to be in this survival mode because it's COVID and all the things that happened with DEI and stuff in the last 2 years. And it's like, just go back to like nothing ever happened. Like, that stuff is like, wait a minute,
It's hard.
Like, wait a second. Like, you've had me create all this anxiety, and now you're like, go back. Yes. So it's interesting. I think there's so much power in saying, there's power in taking a stance in doing what's uncommon.
Yes.
Right? And it's so common to say, I'm going to go back. I'm going to just, after 3 weeks or a month, I'm going to go back to work because that's so common. But there's power in saying, no, I need to sit in this new role. I need to embrace this. I need to be able to get on my feet with this.
Yes.
There's power in that.
I love that perspective so much.
That's revolutionary, right? That's rebellion. And that's when you're doing this work like COTAD. These are revolutionary. This is the good trouble work. And sometimes your day-to-day life, when you're asking day-to-day routine of what you're so used to, and when things change and you don't take a moment and sit in that change, then you're going with what's traditional. And
Yes.
so there's power in that uncommonness, like in your podcast, there's power in saying no, there's power in that rebellion of what everyone's so used to just doing.
Yes. And I think it's so important because we're OTs, right? Like this is what we preach to our clients day in, day out.
Day in and day out.
What's your meaningful occupation? Let's work on those, right? And then here we are so often neglecting our own.
So often. And then you
So,
look at compassion fatigue.
yes.
So often,
Yes.
Yeah. And then add being a person of color on top of that, just fatigue all around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So fill your cups, everyone. Nurture all of those spaces.
Get a good village, like get aligned with Patricia. You know what I mean? Get aligned,
Oh, I will pump you up. That's for sure. Yeah. I am, I could be your number one cheerleader over here. It's a great role. I love that role.
Exactly.
And maybe you've already shared some of this with us, but can you share with us some recent challenges and maybe end it off with some recent successes or highs in relation to your uncommon roles?
Yeah, wow. Well, because I sit in so many different roles.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a loaded question. I know.
Loaded question. I could talk about challenges and successes and so many things.
We can circle back.
No, it's a good question because I look at a challenge as an opportunity to create, to be like solution oriented, right?
Yes.
I look at a challenge as a good thing, as an opportunity to hear people, to think in different ways, to be creative and to create some really sustainable solutions, but to be action oriented about it. And so there's challenges like, for example, as COTAD, like we're shifting, and AOTA, we're shifting governance in both spaces. And there's with that because people don't, it's hard for change, and why is there change, and really understanding what the purpose of the change is. And then when change happens, you see, okay, there's the other side. Specifically, let's talk about COTAD. Like as we're shifting and we change our logo and we change our website and we're going into the next phase of the organization, right? Because it's grown significantly in the past year. And when you're thinking about grassroots organizing, it's just a few people, we're a few leaders, and we know how to do it, and we understand the infrastructure. And then when it just blows up, you have to be able to go with that, right? So that it can be sustainable. The challenge is those growing pains, right? Like,
got it.
Business isn't as usual.
Yes. And these are uncommon things after all, right? So we're learning.
Learning, right? But we can't take our time to do things like we used to do things. There has to be a different kind of infrastructure. There has to be different kind of bylaws. There has to be, as you're growing. And so this is a beautiful space to be in, these growing pains. But it's hard for individuals to, rise to the occasion sometimes when you're so used to doing things a certain way. So there's challenges in that. There's challenges in uplifting your leaders. There's challenges in motivating. There's challenges in rallying the troops to say, we're moving on, on the train we go. And so, but the beautiful success is seeing when we all get aligned and grounded in that work, how we understand the value of moving forward, what moving forward looks like. And it's not like we're leaving with grassroots ideas and our core and our heart, but it's like, well, we have to create structure, because Arameh can't be 30 years from now still in this role, right? I have to be able to be okay with saying COTAD can survive, right? Without me being a chair, without us founders, without us, being so in the day-to-day of things, right? So those are challenges, but successes that we're getting to that next level, So I look at things like that, right? And challenges also with AOTA, and you want transparency, you want authenticity, and you want things to be more diverse, and you want to see things being action oriented, because that's how I operate. And you see that there's systems within systems within systems, and you're learning those, right? And as you learn and you say, well, this is what I feel like I was elected to do. Like, this is what I feel like me being at the table should look like, right? And really navigating those conversations are challenging, but hopefully I'm being heard, right? And that we can really move the organization along into being representative of all things, all people, all populations, right?
Yes.
So just, and then creating holistic admissions. This wasn't easy. Hey, I want to create holistic admissions. I want to change the way we look at how we weigh criteria. I want to move criteria around, like, that's not easy. I want people to understand, like, this glorious, I hold these roles, they don't see the behind the scenes. Like, this is not easy.
Yes.
The nights, the long emails, the meetings, the rationale, the justification, and then being a person of color, right? And I don't want to even use the term imposter syndrome, but just being able to have the tools to have those conversations when you're the only one in those rooms.
Yes.
It's exhausting and challenging in itself.
Yeah.
You'd be questioned that you're like, would I be questioned if, if I wasn't, the types of questions, the amount of questions. I mean, we're seeing it right now with the judge.
Yes.
Seeing it.
I was floored. Yeah.
Right. We're seeing it, but this happens on a day-to-day with women of color, Black women specifically all the time. Right. So these are challenges. These are day-to-day challenges where you just want to do the work. And so there's barriers in place that are systemic, and it's being able to navigate through those challenges to see the successes on the other side. There's success now. USC has holistic admissions. There's success in seeing how much more diversity that we've added to these cohorts. There's success in seeing that there's community being built. There's success seeing that Dr. Lila Lorenz will now have a picture on the wall in the halls of USC where there has been people of color. There's success, right? So with barriers and challenges, hopefully there's comes success with intention, with impact, and with understanding your purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those are certainly the communities that are sprouting all over campuses of occupational therapy programs out there that I'm seeing. I follow each and every one of them on social media.
Yes,
just to support. And then, of course, by doing that, you kind of get a glimpse as to the different activities that they have going on, right? The speakers that they invite, fundraisers that they do. And I mean, I'm just so blown away and impressed by the types of community work that these programs are really doing. So kudos to you as being the co-founder of that initiative.
Thank you.
And so that's definitely a big giant high, right? Big giant success.
Yeah.
I know. So I guess so far to me, based on what I've heard you say and share about starting grassroots organizations, is that it's hard. It's hard. It takes time, right? You may need some financial resources. So I guess, can you share with us a little bit, like, how can we get involved? What can we do? Aside from being COTAD members, right? Which everybody should get their membership because it's like $25 a year or something like
and we
that.
do that intentionally to make it affordable for all people and everything. Hopefully that it's low enough,
Yes, I love that price. But I mean, how can we get involved? Because I'm sure others want to, and maybe not at a Dr. Arameh level where you're, out there, pounding the pavement, right? But maybe give us some examples of what we can do to get involved at different levels, maybe?
Yeah, and I was at those levels, and I'm still at those levels, practice level, leadership level, and I feel like anybody can be a leader as long as you're fearless in doing it, right? So if you see a gap, if you see something that you're like, gosh, I really feel like there should be some change in this, then it is your role to advocate for that change. And that is how you're fearless in your work. You cannot be 1 foot in and 1 foot out in this work. Justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, anti-oppression. You can't be, I'm an accomplice, but I don't want to be uncomfortable. That doesn't work. How you can get involved is really elevating other voices of marginalized communities and truly being an accomplice. So for example, this is a really black and white, clear example. And I say this in the most humblest way, like if you're let's talk about traditional setting because this is easy and I know we're running short on time. So if you're working in the hospital and you have somebody with hair like mine, look how curly my hair is. I know people
I'm obsessed with it. Yeah. Because my hair is like stick straight. Yeah.
Well, I'm all about the bigger the better. Maybe it's the Leo and the lioness in me, right? But like when you're working on grooming activities and you have this one type of comb that works on hair that's straight like yours, there's a disparity, right? There's disparity to say we don't have options for diverse types of hair in our hospital setting. And you, as a person who's a practitioner or a clinician at that setting, can be like, listen, we need to advocate so that we can have these long-term solutions of different options for our clients, right? So that we can really do grooming activities or any occupations that are really culturally responsive, right?
Yes.
And to be able to ask the questions to know what kind of tools or resources our clients need, right?
Yes.
That's how you increase client satisfaction, client outcomes, positive client outcomes, right? And so for me, it's like those are easy things that you can do to say, look at what your strategic plans are in your institution. Do your strategic plans have anything around this work? GI, anti-racism, anti-oppression work. And then after that, you need to hold your institutions accountable. Are there budget in place, right? Budget, there's funding. You can't just do this work off of pure, we did it and we still do it off of pure passion and no money, but we've built a budget from 10 years of work. But, is there a budget? These institutions have lots of money. Are there line items for resources to fund work like this? As a student, if you're in field work and you see barriers and gaps in your field work, you can create a field work project as a 12-week field work to focus on culturally responsive or any kind of care that is inclusive care, right? You have the power as a student. Don't think you're powerless as a student.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this work and you can make sustainable change through your fieldwork projects, through your capstones, starting a COTAD chapter, getting involved where you feel like you want to make an impact. There obviously are a billion things that can be done, but find your niche and be 10 toes down in that, right? Be committed to that.
And I love that you're talking about how it could be done at so many different levels. Thank you for your examples. I mean, from, a fieldwork student, what you can do, just to even self-care activities, in an ADL session, right? Making sure to have the proper tools.
Like ask the questions like, do you wash your hair? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Go ahead. I was going to give another example, but I was like, it's not my story. It's your story. So go ahead.
Oh my goodness. If you all could see us, we're just kikiing right now. I don't think the people can see this, but like ask the questions in an occupational profile. Like, what do you wash your hair with? The shampoo. How often do you wash your hair? Do you wrap your hair at night? How do you manage your curls? Like you can ask these questions, and these questions will help you really build rapport, will help you understand what your clients need. Even when it comes to food, like we're so used to these socioeconomic and these European norms, that, we're assuming that we eat with a spoon and fork and that we, people could eat different ways. I was just at an Ethiopian restaurant, habasha, you eat with your hands.
Yes.
And people eat, Iranis, sometimes you can eat on the floor with your sofre on the floor, and not the table. So like, what does mealtime look like? And these are ways that you can ask questions and you say what you can do. These are the things that you can do. It's not be like I'm rushing, asking the typical questions, but I'm going to dig deeper as an occupational therapist to ask the question.
Yes, as we should be anyway, right? But
uncommon needs to be common.
Yes. So I love that this is all coming up in our conversation because it's so stimulating. It's a great reminder to us, right? That these are our roots. This is what we do anyway, right? And I think it's just this time or now the change is that we're all talking about it and that we want to see it, right? Because I think we maybe have been talking about it for a little bit now, but we haven't really been seeing it.
That's hard. Say it louder, Patricia. We need to see the action.
Yes, we need to see it.
Yeah.
And you may have touched upon the next question already. Any career advice for other OTPs out there who are interested in moving the grassroots route,
Yeah.
or even, sort of being a change maker?
Yeah. I think people oftentimes are led by fear, driven by fear, and are afraid to take these chances and these risks. And, when I was a new grad, like I just said yes to opportunity, straight up. I didn't graduate 15 years ago and say, I'm going to graduate and become the director of admissions at USC, right? I didn't necessarily have that skill set, right? I didn't know what that looked like, but I know what my core is about. I know my core is about creating voices. I know my core is about serving marginalized populations. I know what my beliefs are. I know, certain things, integrity, empathy, compassion, all these things that everything that I've selected to do are in alignment of that. So when you say yes to opportunity, be intentional about what you're saying yes to. But these are ways that you can get in these rooms and get these skills and learn, right? When I went on my interview at USC, like I never necessarily worked with, there were like 20 people in my interview. Okay. Listen, I never literally worked with any of these people 9 to 5, but I knew every single person in my interview because of my volunteer leadership, right? Of me doing projects and events and organizing and creating and building relationship through service, leadership, right?
Yeah.
To where they knew my character. They understood, who I was. I wasn't introducing myself as someone that is unknown, right? And so that it's so helpful. So don't take your networking and your getting involved at whatever level for granted, because it's opportunity for you to build relationship, and you never know what those relationship opportunities will lead to, right?
Yes.
It allows you to be in rooms to make big change. And I'm grateful for every opportunity that I have, but just know that you have to work for it.
Yes. You have to go do it, right? You have to get out there, put yourself out there.
Yes, you have to work for it. It's not like, oh, I'm here in this role. And people too occupy space like that.
Yes.
People occupy space like that all the time. But you have to be able to put in the work and be and see, go to the end road, like see it through. Not be like, oh, one barrier, okay, I'm just gonna stop. You gotta see it through. And so when you do that, I think that's when you're making an impact. My baby's crying.
Do we need to go? All right, we'll wrap it up. But we're at the end anyway.
There you go, being a mom, everyone. Happy to be also a working mom. There you go.
Hey, we're making it happen. Absolutely, we're making it work. So, are there any common myths or misconceptions that you quickly want to kind of demystify for us?
Yeah, I think there's this idea of like it's glorious, it's easy, maybe it's cool. You're forward facing, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with these roles. It's a lot of like sleepless nights, like I said. It's a lot of hard work, and I think that generationally or whatever, it's just like you might post something on social and it just all looks like glamorous, right? But I didn't probably get my clothes on today to do this podcast until like noon. Okay, that's a deal, because I was taking care of the baby and trying to answer emails and having phone calls, and that's not what I'm used to. I'm used to having control over everything, as much as I can. And I think that to demystify, you have to be flexible. You have to understand that control shifts. You have to understand that there's work that has to be done, and that things aren't just easy.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
If you really want to have the uncommon and you want to be able to make a change, it's nice to be in these positions, but heavier are the shoulders.
Yeah. And the perseverance, right? The perseverance to keep going. And I think as a profession,
you get phone calls from across the country. It's not like get phone calls just from students. I get phone calls from across the country. This happened, that happened. How can you help me? How can you support? And it's like you want to be present. You want to help, but so heavier the head, heavier the shoulders, right? And you have to respond to that. how do you respond and how do you refill your cup up too when you're giving. And so,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
But
thanks for sharing. Thank you for
You're
sharing all of that with us. We needed you, right? The profession, in my opinion, needed you. We needed you to fuel us, to really get us to organize us. Exactly what your organization did. You got us all together. And we needed you to lead us, and not only that, but empower us to be leaders.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm honored when I'm in spaces with other individuals like yourself, because it allows these conversations to give each other energy. So just as much as you need me, I need you, in the most humblest way. And it's important to build, like I said, I started this podcast off with talking about how important it is to build community, and I want to end it. It's important to stay in community, to build in community, and there's no space for dehumanization in community.
No.
We're all just trying our best.
We are, and there's no better feeling than belonging.
Listen,
that's why
I want to hug you across this. Yes, because that's so OT. The belonging and the becoming.
Yes.
The being. That's what we are.
Yeah.
That's what we are. Yeah.
When we belong, we feel better all around, right? So as therapists, right? We're the therapists in this scenario. It's within our role to really make sure that there's space for that to flourish.
Absolutely.
So you're creating so much space all over, the campuses of OT programs out there for that space. So I'm so honored to have you on the show. I'm so happy that you've spent your time with me, and I'm just proud to call you my fellow OT and now my friend.
Well, this has opened up the door for continued ongoing conversation and relationship building, and I'm just thankful that you think I'm cool enough to be on your podcast.
Oh my gosh, you are the coolest. And we're going to have you back again to talk about the other chapters that you've got going on, because I just think you're unstoppable. You're on a mission, and again, I'm so happy to be to be a part of that mission with you.
Yeah, thank you. Same.
If our listeners wanted to follow you, get in touch, is it okay if they do ask questions?
Sure, absolutely. They can follow me on my handle. I guess my handle. Do I say my handle right now? So cool.
Can.
Yeah. Arameh, DRARKEH at Instagram and Twitter. I'm not on Twitter as much anymore, but I need to go back on. But IG, and then they can always email me. You can find my email on the USC Chan website. I'm the director of admissions. I would say it here, but my email is so long. My last name is just too long for a podcast, but you could easily search it on USC website. USC.
Don't worry. We'll list it on our notes.
Thank you.
We'll save everyone the trouble.
Yes,
but thank you so much again, and for sharing your journey, the wealth of information, your inspiration, and even a little bit of your baby with our listeners.
Yes, I know. I'm like, here you are. This is the real deal. How about that? You heard him crying from his nap, and thank God my husband's here right now. So other than that, I'm on my way to my next call to support students, and I'm just grateful for you, Patricia, and for your wonderful podcast. Thank you for having me.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Uncommon OT series. Connect with me at www.transitionsot.com. And don't forget to sign up to be part of the Transitions OT community. By doing so, you'll receive my latest compiled list of uncommon OT practice settings, the latest news on mentoring offerings, uncommon OT live events, non-traditional OT resources, and more. You may also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you love this episode, head on over to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts to follow, rate, and leave a review. I also ask you to consider pledging your support to my Passion Podcast project by being a patron on Patreon. It is very much appreciated. Sending big OT love. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.